What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 175 of the Nerd Cave podcast. And it's crazy to think that we are just 25 episodes away from 200. It seems like yesterday we were just starting this whole thing. I'm one of your hosts, Derek Diamond, and as you can tell, I'm by myself this week. We've all had very busy schedules over the last several weeks. Zach this weekend went out of town. Robbie has been working all weekend. Me, myself, I've been really busy with the Wahoo season, which for those of you that live in the Pensacola area, the Wahoos were eliminated from the playoffs. So that means that baseball is over for the year, which means that I will have more time to be on this show. This past Saturday we had UWF football, which I'll be working a few times over the next couple of months. So I've just been really busy. I'm actually recording this at work early Monday morning. I came in like an hour early to do this thing. So this is about as live as you can get with a pre-recorded show. And there hasn't really been a ton of news that I'll get into, but there were a couple of big things. The first one, which those of you who know me know I'm a huge Nintendo fan. Nintendo announced a smartphone game exclusively for Apple, which I've been reading that it will be available for Android, which I'm sure it will be at some point. But this is from wired.co.uk. Mario is coming to iPhone. Nintendo has announced Super Mario Run, the first mobile game to feature its iconic Italian plumber. In the game, Mario runs forward on his own while users tap with a single finger to jump over obstacles, avoid enemies, and capture the flagpole to complete levels. Speaking on stage at Apple's September event, Nintendo's Shigeru Miyamoto said the game would debut on iPhone by the end of 2016. Super Mario Run will be free to download, but users will have to pay an as-yet unknown price to access the game's full features. It will be available from the App Store in over 100 countries and 9 different languages in time for Christmas. Nintendo has also said that an Android version of the game will be available at some point in the future. I think this is huge. Nintendo released Miitomo, I believe was what it was called, a few months ago, which is kind of cool. It deals with, social interaction and everything, but actually having a Nintendo-endorsed Mario game for your smartphone is huge. I know I'm definitely going to be getting it. I know a lot of people who love Nintendo will be getting it, and it's kind of an exciting time to be a Nintendo fan. You've got the NX coming out, you've got the mini NES coming out in November, and now by Christmas we'll have a legit Mario iPhone game, which it kind of reminds me a little bit of those Sonic games, the storybook ones, where he moves by himself and you just have to, make him jump and attack enemies and everything. So I think that'll be a cool dynamic. I think it's a good idea for the smartphone games to do something like that. It makes it a little bit different. But I'm very, very excited. I've seen a couple of photos and it looks like they took the quote-unquote new Super Mario Brothers look for this game, and I am very, very excited for it. So in DC news, this was actually kind of a shocker. This was announced, I believe, right after we did the last podcast. The villain for the solo Batman film has been confirmed, and it's not who we thought it was, but it's someone that I am very excited to see on the big screen, and that would be Mr. Slade Wilson himself, Deathstroke. And this is from comicbookmovie.com. Jeff Johns, Ben Affleck recently revealed test footage from the set of Justice League featuring Batman and Titans villain Slade Wilson, aka Deathstroke. Now new profile from Ben Fritz of the Wall Street Journal has seemingly confirmed that Joe Manganiello, hopefully I'm pronouncing that name right, from Magic Mike and True Blood, will play Slade in the Oscar winner's upcoming directorial effort, the untitled Batman solo film. Some fans have previously pointed to Twitter activity of Manganiello and his wife, Sofia Vergara, God, I'm so jealous of him, as evidence of this casting, and it seems they have now been vindicated. Deathstroke. Very underrated villain. I'm glad that he's going to be the Batman villain. because I think those two can have some really awesome fights and really good chemistry. It'll be tough to top Manu Bennett because that's kind of who Deathstroke is in my mind. Manu Bennett did an amazing job in the early Arrow seasons, and I wonder if Deathstroke being in the cinematic universe is going to affect Manu Bennett possibly coming back as Deathstroke in Arrow. Stephen Amell has come out and said that it hasn't, but we have seen in the past DC get rid of some things on the small screen for the big screen. For example, the Suicide Squad was featured in Arrow quite prevalently, and Amanda Waller was a big part of it, and she was killed off, spoiler alert, and they got rid of the Suicide Squad. And seemingly enough, it was around the time that they really started pushing the movie. So I think that Warner Brothers still has that old school mindset of TV's here, movies here, they stay apart from each other. I don't really think that's a good idea because, as we've seen from Marvel, I think it's very good that you have cross-promotion, and I think that they need to do that with the Netflix shows. I'm really hoping that in Infinity War we see, you know, Daredevil, Punisher, Jessica Jones, all of those. I hope we see all the Netflix characters in Infinity War. I have my doubts about that because they're doing the Defenders pretty quickly. I believe, let's see, Luke Cage comes out September of this year. Then next year we get Iron Fist and the Defenders. So I don't know if they're going to be putting them in Infinity War. I hope so, because this is supposed to be the climax or the pinnacle of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I hope they do it. I think it would be awesome. I think it would be great to see Matt Murdock interact with Tony Stark, or Jessica Jones interact with Black Widow. It would be so cool, and the Netflix shows are so popular. I actually like them more than the Marvel movies at this point, because you can just sit down, you have more time to invest in the characters. It's a little grittier, a little more realistic as you can get with superpowers. I just like it more. What can I say? Keeping it in the DC universe, Mark Hamill and Kevin Conroy tease Hush and A Death in the Family DC animated films. And this is also from our friends at comicbookmovie.com. Mark Hamill and Kevin Conroy were in attendance at Canada's 2016 Fan Expo and reportedly sent the audience into a tizzy when they teased what the next slate of DC animated films might consist of. Let's see, Conroy turned to Hamill and asked, "What do you think about Hush?" Naturally, this produced some oohs and ahs from the audience. However, the crowd went absolutely wild when Hamill then followed up and asked Conroy, "Well, what do you think about A Death in the Family?" Are Conroy and Hamill having a lark with their fans, or are animated adaptations of Jeff Loeb's Hush and Jim Starlin's A Death in the Family really in the works? Now, I will say this, I've never read A Death in the Family. As you know, I'm more of a Marvel guy than DC, but I have read Hush. Hush is very, very good. I think that this would be the next possible great DC animated film, because not only do you have, you know, all the villains, but you have a newer villain that has a personal connection to Bruce Wayne. And I think that would make for an entirely new dynamic that we haven't really seen in any of the DC animated films, or at least the animated films that I've seen. I don't really know that much about Death in the Family. I know Zach will probably kill me whenever he watches this, but I'm sure he would be really excited about that as well. Something I know that I want to see from DC, I know they're big on the Batman animated film kick right now, but what I would love to see, and I mentioned this a few weeks ago on the podcast, I would love to see a Superman Red Sun adaptation, because to me that is one of, if not the greatest what-if story ever told. If you don't know what Superman Red Sun is, it's basically, instead of Superman landing in rural Kansas, he lands in communist Russia. And it's really interesting having to root for Lex Luthor over Superman. But I digress. Hush would be great. I know they've got Justice League Dark coming up is their next big one, and they have Matt Ryan returning to voice Constantine, which I think is great. Moving on to the Marvel side of the comic book universe, Spider-Man Homecoming news. We've been talking about how stacked the casting is. It was reported that Jon Favreau will be returning as Happy Hogan for Spider-Man Homecoming, in addition to, Robert Downey Jr. playing Tony Stark. But we've known that Michael Keaton will be playing the Vulture, aka Adrian Toomes, but it's been rumored that there will be other villains as well. And according to this other report from comicbookmovie.com, we've yet to receive confirmation that Bokeem Woodbine would be playing Herman Schultz the Shocker in Spider-Man Homecoming, even though a call sheet had leaked the casting. However, the latest photos from the Atlanta set of the 2017 reboot may have revealed our very first look at the Fargo actor in his full costume as the classic Spidey supervillain. Instagram seems to be the original source of the collage photos below, so the quality is not that great. We can actually see if it's Woodbine in the classic yellow suit, given his comic-accurately costume from head to toe. However, we can see devices attached to his wrist, which will likely help him send out shock waves, much to Spider-Man's dismay. Apparently, this is the first of 2 battle suits the Shocker will don, so what do you think? You can't see the photos, obviously, but it looks like it's very much homemade, and you can see it has the wrist guards that cause the electric blast. What I think will happen is I think this will be his first costume, one that he kind of made himself. It kind of reminds me a little bit of the Amazing Spider-Man movie when Andrew Garfield made his costume by himself, how it looked a little bit different. And then I think the Tinkerer will build him his traditional suit. So I have no issue with multiple villains being in this movie, as long as it doesn't take away from the main plot. Like, we use Spider-Man 3 as a classic example. We had the Sandman as the primary villain, but then they had to add in the fact that he was the one who killed Uncle Ben. Then they added, the new Goblin. They added Venom at the very last minute because Sony was like, hey, Venom's popular. You got to put him in the movie. Yay. And then you cast Eric Foreman from the 70s show as Eddie Brock, who's supposed to be this huge guy who's supposed to be like Brock Lesnar size. But anyway, I won't get on a rant about Spider-Man 3. What I'm saying is, as long as it's something similar to, like, I didn't mind how Rhino was used in Amazing Spider-Man 2 for how not great of a movie that was. I thought it handled the multiple villains fairly well. So I think that, I don't mind the Shocker being in it as long as he has like maybe one fight with Spider-Man towards the beginning of the movie, and then we see him later on with his traditional suit and they have another fight. So I would keep it at 2 appearances at the most, but I don't have an issue with it as long as they do it right. And I have faith because Marvel knows the pressure they are under to get this right, because Spider-Man is their Mickey Mouse. This is their most iconic character they have in their entire library, and the fact that they finally got the movie rights to him back, they're not going to screw it up. So I'm really, really stoked about this. I can't wait to see the first trailer for it. I've heard this is going to be similar to a type of, 80s John Hughes film, which I think would be really cool because I'm a huge fan of like The Breakfast Club, Home Alone, 16 Candles, all of those movies. I think this could be really, really good and very different from the other movies because you have that high school setting, that teenager stuff you're dealing with. I just think it could be different, and I think it could be really cool, and I really don't think that Marvel is going to screw it up. Last bit of news comes from comicbookmovie.com. They might as well be a sponsor of this episode. Talking about the Power Rangers reboot that comes out next year. Don't expect to see any of the original Power Rangers cast cameo in the upcoming reboot. When a classic or cult favorite TV series is given the big screen treatment, the filmmakers will usually try to find room for a cameo appearance from an original cast member or two, but that won't be the case with the upcoming Power Rangers reboot. Walter Jones, who played the Black Ranger Zack, very nice guy by the way, met him at Pensacon, In Mighty Morphin Power Rangers was a guest on the Audibly Exquisite podcast and revealed that neither he nor any of his castmates from that show were asked to appear in the film. "It's not likely," said the actor when asked about the possibility of a cameo. "Unfortunately, we were not invited to be a part of the film, which is confusing to me, but I'm excited about the film nevertheless." And then it asks, how do you guys feel about this? Are you disappointed, or do you think it's best if the movie distances itself from the 90s TV series? I am disappointed in this because it's cool seeing, a reboot, or if it's a reboot that you're excited about, that you go see and then you see one of the original cast members pop up. It's a cool moment. And I was picturing something like maybe, Rita or whatever monster that the Rangers are fighting beats them and they have to come back and kind of, collect themselves, that the 5 original Rangers show up. Not saying that they're the original Rangers, because this is a reboot, but maybe they show up to give the 5 Rangers some advice on how to beat Rita, or, given the whole, may the power protect you kind of speech. It's disappointing. I would have loved to have seen the original Rangers make an appearance on the movie. I don't know why they didn't do it. Maybe, this article is right. Maybe it's just them trying to distance themselves from the show and make it something their own, which I can respect, but I also think that you're going to disappoint a lot of people if you don't have the original Power Rangers. And it could have just been a one-off thing, like maybe they all play high school teachers, or something along to that effect. Like, I think it would have been hilarious if there was a scene where they're doing like, a lab class and Billy is their teacher because he was the nerd. Maybe they're at some type of PE class or learning martial arts and their instructor is Jason. Zach can be teaching dance classes. Kimberly can be teaching gymnastics. I don't know. It's not going to affect me not seeing the movie because I'm still very interested in seeing it. But I'm still holding out reservations on how it's going to be. I'm still going to go see it, but I do have my concerns about it. I think that there's a possibility it will try and take itself way too seriously, and people won't buy in because people know it for the campy, over-the-top show that it was. Now, if they do it right, it could be kind of cool. But I think the first trailer is really going to set the tone for people's expectations for this movie. I just hope they don't make the same mistake that Ghostbusters did. I didn't see the new Ghostbusters, but I did hear that it was actually a pretty good movie. But you wouldn't know that because the first trailer was crap. It made it seem like Bridesmaids with better special effects. So they've really got to come out with the first trailer. I don't know when it's coming out yet, but they've got to come out and they've got to put out a really strong trailer. And I think that if there is no cameo by the original cast members, I think it's going to be a mistake. It could be that Walter Jones is just yanking our chain and they'll show up at some point in the movie. I don't know. We'll just have to see. Every week, we turn to our awesome Facebook group, facebook.com/group/nerdcave, and we post a thread asking for questions or topics to discuss on the show. And our first topic comes from the other Derek Daniel. I posted an article yesterday saying that Season 5 of Arrow will see Felicity venture into new territory this season and venture out of her comfort zone. Could we possibly see her in the field with Oliver and company? Also a very underrated Disney movie. I think it's possible. I think they have to be very careful with that, though, because a lot of the Arrow fans have gotten tired of Olicity, meaning Oliver and Felicity together. It was a bit much at times during Season 4. Season 4 was pretty good, in my opinion. I think the hate for it has gone a little bit too far. Definitely better than Season 3, but I think what they have to do is they need to get back to basics and have that more grounded reality show. Because with Flash, we have superpowers and metahumans, And I don't mind seeing that every now and then on Arrow. But to me, Arrow is kind of like the Batman show, where it's just a guy who knows martial arts and is really good with a bow and arrow. I think that they need to go back to what made seasons 1 and 2 so good, meaning that it's a little more grounded in reality. You're not dealing with magic, you're not dealing with the supernatural. I just think that maybe the whole thing will work, like it could be a one-off thing. Felicity goes out into the field, but I think it's better that she stay behind the computer screen, because I actually like Felicity. I just think they gave her a little bit too much airtime with season 4. And don't get me wrong, I love the actress that plays her, but I think it needs to focus more back to Oliver than Oliver and Felicity. Also, a set photo was released of the new Team Arrow with new vigilantes Artemis, Wild Dog, and most importantly, Mr. Terrific. Thoughts on how they will play over the course of the season, and do you think they will stay together as a team for the whole season? I'm actually really excited for Mr. Terrific. I love the Curtis character. I think he's really funny. I think he's completely different, and he adds that little bit of comedic value that you need. As far as them staying together for the whole season, I don't think so. I think they will break up at some point and then come back together towards the season finale, because I think at some point they'll break off. Oliver will be back by himself, and then Thea and Diggle will come back, in addition to the newbies. As far as the newbies go, I'm very interested to see how they play into this whole thing, because I know in the official season synopsis it says they're more of a burden than a help, because they're obviously very inexperienced. They don't have the skills or the knowledge that Oliver has. I think it could be a good thing. I know I'm very interested to see how Flashpoint affects the Arrow show. Sorry, spoilers if you have not seen the season 2 finale of The Flash, but I'm interested in seeing it. And I will say, touching on this, I read something yesterday that Flashpoint will leave some things on the Flash, quote unquote, broken forever. I don't know exactly what that means, but October can't get here soon enough. I mean, it's only a couple of weeks away. We're less than a month away from all the shows coming back. So hopefully Zach will catch up and we can all talk about it. Last one from Derek Daniel. The first few set images of Season 3 of The Flash were of Kid Flash facing off against a black-suited speedster. Then at Comic-Con, when one of the villains revealed for the season was Savitar, everyone assumed that was the black-suited speedster. However, a Flash exec came out a few weeks ago and revealed that Savitar has not been cast yet, and the speedster was revealed to be Dr. Edward Claris, aka The Rival. Just overall thoughts on the reveal and thoughts on the overhaul on speedsters this season, as we now have The Rival and Savitar coupled with Flash and Kid Flash. Now, I will say again, this is a spoiler for those who haven't seen Season 2 of The Flash yet. I'm wondering if one of the things that changes, because it's revealed that Flashpoint will only last a couple of episodes, that when things go back to the original timeline, if Wally will still have his powers. That being the case, I think it would be kind of cool if that did happen, and you had Flash basically become the mentor, because his past two mentors have betrayed him. So I think it'd be kind of cool to put him in that role, and he would maybe be a little reserved about it because he's been let down so much in the past. Having, the two speedsters, The Rival and Savitar, I think, it just goes along with that whole thing of having the speedsters as the main villains. I mean, eventually they're going to run out. It's going to happen. And then maybe we'll get the Gorilla Grodd army that I want, even though that's revealed that's going to happen in Season 3. But I think Grodd could be a primary villain. I will say I don't know a whole lot about the Flash's Rogues Gallery, so I don't know a lot about The Rival or Savitar. But I think the Flash is just so good that I just have total faith in it. And I think having 2 versus 2 speedsters, I think, would be something different. I actually like the kid who plays Wally West. I'm excited to see what he does as Kid Flash. And also it's been reported that Jessie will be getting her powers as well, so she'll be Jessie Quick. So you'll have 3 good speedsters. So we'll have a whole speedster Flash family. I'm just really excited for all the shows to come back. And here at work we do Arrow Thursday and Flash Wednesday, where we'll just go out, grab lunch, bring it back, and then we'll watch Flash and Arrow, which we'll have to watch it on the CW website now because Hulu no longer has access to those shows, which was a big coup by Netflix. I mean, shout out to Netflix. It's big getting those shows and then putting them out a week after the finale. And I think you're going to see more shows do that because DVDs, I have a huge DVD collection. I'm big on getting physical copies of things, but streaming is just so big now. I mean, it's the same with me. Like, I haven't bought a DVD, I think, since Guardians of the Galaxy. It's been a long time because I just stream everything. I can get something off the iTunes store because I have Apple TV now. I don't even have cable anymore. I have Sling TV where I can just get the few channels that I actually watch and I can stream them from my Apple TV. So streaming, I think, is definitely the way of the future. I think you'll always have your physical copies of things, but streaming is going to be even bigger in the next couple of years. So off my streaming rant, that's all the questions that we have for this week. I know this has been kind of a shorter episode, and Zach and Robbie weren't able to be here, and I'm doing this pretty much at the absolute last minute, but hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Be sure to check out our Patreon, patreon.com/nerdcave, if you want to get access to the show early. The Nerd Cave podcast comes out for free every Friday on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, and Google Play, but if you want to get access to it early, then just go to patreon.com/nerdcave, and you have to donate, I believe it's $5 or more to get the early access audio. There are all kinds of different tiers that you can check out. And we do appreciate your support. If you can't, we totally understand. And you'll eventually be able to get all of the content for free. We release this podcast out in segments every day on YouTube, and the full podcast comes out on Friday. We also have other podcasts we do throughout the week. Every Monday is Nerd Cave Retro, where myself and Jason Robbins discuss retro games. Wednesday is Fantasy Football for Nerds. Thursday is my solo show, The Derek Diamond Experience. Friday, as I've said, is the Nerd Cave Podcast. Saturdays, we have our friends over at the Pop Culture Palette. And we're also all over social media. We're on Twitter and Instagram at Nerd Cave Vids. And we have our Facebook group, which I've mentioned before, facebook.com/group/nerdcave. You can also check us out on YouTube at Nerd Cave, where you can find this podcast and all of our Reacts videos. And we also have our other channel, Nerd Cave Gaming, where you can check out all of our Let's Plays and our content regarding video game news. So on behalf of Zach and Robbie, hopefully you guys enjoyed episode 175 of the Nerd Cave podcast. This is Derek saying, have a week.